What's up everyone, I'm Alone Architect. Welcome to my studio. In today's video, which is the first video I've ever done like this, so bear with me, I'm going to walk you through a breakdown of the vocal production on my latest single, Daddy. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go through basic compression, basic EQ techniques, but I'm going to show you more of the creative mindset and some of the techniques I use to achieve the tones and textures that I did in this video. I'm going to break it down into two parts, verses and choruses, but what you're going to see throughout is that I've rinsed and repeated a lot of the same techniques, but in slightly different ways based on the intention and the outcome that I wanted. I recorded these vocals on this mic, Shure SM7B, in this spot right here, in this room right here, and let's get going. So subscribe to this channel if you haven't, smash the like button, and watch the video all the way through to the end. Let's start off with the verse. I'm going to play you a little bit of the song with the production so you can ground in, and then I'm going to start breaking it down. Let's go. Right off the bat, you can hear that these are pretty heavily processed. They're not necessarily natural sounding. This ain't a folk song. It's a weird, dark, edgy kind of track, and the intention for these vocals were to have them be a little bit otherworldly, a little bit alien, a little bit dark and demonic, so I'll show you how I achieve this. The verses are a little bit softer, the choruses are pretty dark. So, first off, I'm going to solo the main vocal, or actually what I should say is, first off, as you can see, I have two tracks here. I have my main vocal and then I have my parallel track. So I'm going to go through the main vocal mostly. I'll touch on the parallel track a little bit, but not too much. So let me turn off my effect chain except for the first plugin that I'm using, which is Auto-Tune. So I have Auto-Tune. I have the retune speed of Auto-Tune at 0, and I have it on classic mode. So it's pretty hard tuned, and I was going for that T-Pain effect a little bit. And when I sang these vocals, I made sure not to be too on pitch because I wanted Auto-Tune to grab those notes and do the thing that it does in this mode. Let's have a listen in solo with just Auto-Tune. Right off the bat, you can hear a lot more of my natural tone, albeit very heavily tuned. That's the effect I was going for, as I said. Next plugin in the chain, Antares Harmony Engine. Great plugin. Let's take a listen to what it's doing. You will kiss my watermark. You will kiss my wounds. So you can see, or you can hear, that I have a low octave going on, which is happening right here. And you can't really hear because it's subtle, but there's also a high octave happening right here. It pops out in certain moments, in other moments it's definitely more subtle. I panned the low octave -10 to the left and the high octave 8 to the right because I wanted it to give it a little bit more of like a stereo thing. Not too stereo, but slightly. And right away you hear that with that effect, it obviously sounds even less natural. Moving forward, next effect, I cannot speak, is Little Altar Boy. I love this plugin. It's pretty cool. Check out what I'm doing with it though. So you see the formant? I'm automating the formant and it's changing throughout. Let's have a listen to hear what it's doing. You will kiss my watermark. You will kiss my wounds. I live for adrenaline. I'll just have to believe in you. Keep me. As you can hear, on certain notes, it's dipping a little bit, and then it's picking up a little bit, so the formant is going to the negatives, making it darker, making it moodier, and then at certain notes it's going a little bit higher. So the reason I did this is again because I wanted this vocal to be otherworldly, and this was giving me the vibe I wanted, emphasizing certain notes that I wanted to sound a little bit more low, and then emphasizing ones that I wanted to be a little bit higher. Let's move on. Next up, basic EQ. This isn't doing anything too fancy, just some notches in the zones where my voice tends to get harsh, especially after these two plugins here and the processing, a little bump in the 2 to 5K range, and then some dynamic EQ, centered around the 300 range. After that, we're going to skip vocal synth. That happens in the chorus. After that, another EQ with some other notches, but the cool thing is on this last EQ, I like to do this in a lot of my vocals. I like to find a band. Here, let me open it and show you. I like to find a band that's centered around the fundamental frequency of the vocal, and then I like to ride it. I find it creates more dynamic, more emotion. Let me show you how it sounds. You will kiss my watermark. You will kiss my lips. I'm full of adrenaline. Pretty subtle. Now let me take it off and show you how it sounds. You will kiss my watermark. You will kiss my lips. I'm full of adrenaline. I personally find that without it, the vocal sounds a little bit less exciting, a little bit less dynamic. And this is a trick. I want to pay some respects here. This was a trick that was shared to me from one of my mentors, the late Rob Heaney. Love you, Rob. He was mix engineer for basically every Cirque du Soleil record that came out. I'm from Montreal, so I spent a lot of time in studio with Rob, and I just want to pay homage to him because this is something he showed me. And every time I use this trick, it makes me think of him. Love you, Rob. Again, let's move on now to the second verse. So in the second verse, I'm doing one main thing differently. Let me pull it up over here. So I have the same thing going on in the lead track, then I have my parallel track. I'll touch on that pretty quickly. I have some decapitator, I have some hard compression, and then some EQ just to clean it up. And I want you to take note that this track, the parallel track and this new track are all direct copies of one another. So let me show you what this third new track is doing in there. It's basically the same thing, but clean, without the effects that first main track had. I have auto-tune on it again. Retune speed is at 0. It's in classic mode, and then just some subtractive EQ to clean things up afterwards. Let's take a listen to this track. Pretty much just my voice with hard auto-tune on it. And the reason I did that is because I like for my mixes and my productions to kind of evolve as they go on. And I feel like this is a little bit like a flower blooming or blossoming. As you get to the second verse, there's like some subtle differences. It keeps things interesting. It's never static, never exactly the same thing. And also in terms of the song conceptually, I wanted my voice, my natural voice, to cut through a little bit more in the second verse and that to be on the forefront. Let me solo all three of these tracks and play them for you together so you can hear what it sounds like. Lately I've been wondering just what I will do, only for the medicine. Now let me take out that new track, the third one, right over here, and just play these two. I mean, right away you hear the difference. Now let me play you all of these with the music, and then I'll take out this track midway through. Putting it back in now. I mean, it just sounds more lively. I like the fact that it's my natural tone that's coming through a little bit more, and I feel like it makes the song a little bit more exciting and helps in the progression as the song is going from the first verse to the first chorus into that second verse. So that's basically it for the verses. Now we're going to get into the choruses, and in the choruses is where a lot of the crazy stuff's going on. First, I'm going to show you what the chorus is made up of. You can see right over here, there are about 7 tracks that I've highlighted. So those are more of the background tracks. And then the main ones are over here, and there's about 10 of them. So obviously, it's kind of insane, but you're going to see that each of them is doing a thing, and each of them is there for a reason. Let me play you the second half of the second chorus so you can hear it in context. Here we go. First off, let's go and jump into this, and I'll show you what I've done over here. Again, I'm going to zoom in on these 2 tracks. Here I have my lead one. Here I have a parallel one. The lead one is doing most of the heavy lifting, so let me solo that and show you what's going on right over here. Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy. He'll now use you. So just in that one track, you hear it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. That's one track, and it sounds huge to me. There's obviously some delay going on. I'm not going to get into my return tracks. If you want to know more about that, leave me a comment down there, and I can get into some of the returns on this song and go a little bit more into detail. But for timing's sake, because it's already going to be a bit long, I'm just going to go and show you what I did on this track. So right here in my effects chain, from here to here is basically my standard EQ and the standard way I treat my voice after I record it. So I do some EQ on it, I do some compression, I put like a channel preamp on it. I love the UAD 610B, but I'm not going to show you all those settings. Usually I would flatten the track and then start from there just to alleviate the load. But for this one, I left it there just to show you quickly that I have a 610B, some EQ, some compression. I love 1176s followed by LA2As. It just works. And then we get into the auto-tune. So right here with auto-tune, you're going to notice first off that I'm using it in informant mode as opposed to classic mode in the verses. And my retune speed's at 8. Still pretty high, but not at 0. Plus I've used the flex tune and humanize, which make the part a little bit more human sounding. Also, it's informant mode, and the throat is at 118. So it's kind of pitched down or formanted down to give it a slightly deeper, eerier, creepier vibe. So I'll play that for you, but first I'm going to take off the rest of the creative chain that follows the autotune so you can hear it without. Let's do that. Check it. Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy. He'll now use you. So I'm approaching this as I'm singing it with a bit of rasp in my voice, a little bit of vocal fry, and that's giving it some of the cool textures. Notice how the retune speed, I automated it so it would go down at certain moments. I'll show you right over here quickly. Auto-tune, and look at the retune speed. So that's usually when I'm sliding from one note into another one because I don't want auto-tune to give it this stepped kind of super tune thing. So I made sure to automate the retune speed so that it allowed those slides from one note into the other. Very important thing in terms of like the actual way it's sung. So that's auto-tune. Then I follow that up by thermal, really cool plugin. Really like it. It's a saturation plugin, but in this instance, I'm using Tube Slapback. It's a preset that I took and then I modified it, but it kind of does a little delay slapback vibe. Check it out. Let's listen.
Sit back, is your daddy. He's your daddy. Hello.
Right away, you hear a little bit more dimension in there. Following the thermal plugin, I have Harmony Engine once again. Let's take a listen to what it's doing.
Sit back, is your daddy. He's your daddy. Hello.
So as you can hear, it's actually doing a lot. What I have going on is I have an octave up over here, another octave up over here, an octave down here, another octave down here. So for the octave ups, I've panned them midway to the left, midway to the right, and for the octave downs, I've panned them hard left and hard right. And notice over here how all the settings are kind of different between the two octave downs, and the settings are different between the two higher octaves. The reason I did that is to make them each a bit different, so it's not the exact same thing going on in each ear. Why did I choose to put my octave downs hard right, hard left, as opposed to the high ones? It was just a vibe, you know? I was going for that. A lot of people tell you, even with bass and stuff, don't put low end, you know, left and right, keep it center. But we're in 2021 and there's tons of low end in the sides of like recordings nowadays. So that's why I chose to do that. And right away you hear how much heavy lifting this plugin's doing. So after that, I followed it up with this plugin. It's called FG Bomber. I took down some of the drive, kept it in fat mode, and this knob is a knob that I love, the intensity knob. It kind of does a thing. It makes things sound more intense, more pressing. Great plugin. Love it. I suggest you try this out because it's really, really super cool. And then I close that off with just some basic subtractive EQ again. Simple stuff, right? So let's move on. From there, I have a parallel track. This is my lead. This is my parallel. And it's basically a direct copy again. I have more or less the same chain going on. All this is the same over here. And then after here, I change it up a little bit. The main change I did in the parallel track as opposed to the main track is that I took out the harmony engine and I put in Little Altar Boy. So let's take a listen quickly.
Hello,
Played from this top of the second half.
Sit back, is your daddy. He's your daddy. So
that is more center focused. I wanted the parallel track to provide a little bit of like focus in the center. And I chose Little Altar Boy instead of Harmony Engine because I wanted it to have a different tone, a different texture. And, you know, again, like I said, when you're copying tracks, and especially when you're copying tracks and putting them on the left and the right, if you don't either offset them slightly or affect them differently, they can phase and cancel out. And the way I get about doing that, the way I break that rule, because I like breaking rules, is to basically affect them differently. So in essence, you don't have the same waveform. You're destroying the waveform and making them sound completely different, and that way they don't cancel out. In this instance, it's going down the center, and it's really just a parallel track supporting it. So it's kind of like the same concept of using parallel compression, but I'm doing it with certain other effects. Let's move on. Next, I have another direct copy. It's going down the center. Let's listen to it. Pretty self-explanatory. Really pitched down. Another different tone. So Little Altar Boy's doing that. I put my pitch down a whole octave and then my formant down negative 10.5. And that's what's doing the bulk of that. Let's move on. Next track. This one is pan 37 left. Let's listen to what it sounds like. And again, you kind of see that I'm doing similar things in different ways. I'm going for all these weird, kind of demonic, alien low tones, but I'm affecting them each differently. So it's not ever exactly the same. And it's providing and creating this really complex and lush texture to the vocals. Let's look at what this track's doing. Again, a little altar boy, this time pitched up an octave and formatted down a whole 12 steps. And then some basic subtractive EQ, and then some compression. Again, 1176 followed by the LA2A. I really love the black 1176, gotta say, in general for vocals. I like the blue stripe too, but I actually like the black better. Smoother to me. Let's move on. Right here, we have a double. So this is a double that I actually sang. It's not a copy, and I panned this one 33 right. Why did I use this double instead of a copy? At this point, just to change it up, honestly, I just use different techniques, different tricks along the way. There are some actual sung doubles, some triples, some copies, high octaves, low octaves. This time I decided to marry the 33 right over here with the 37 left, and let's check out and hear how it sounds. So compared to this, you hear how it's a little bit different. Let's go back to the other one. Together, let's listen to the vibe they give. Pretty cool. So what did I do on this track? Aside from, again, the standard EQ compression and then auto-tune, which the retune speed is at 23 in classic mode, changing it up again, a little bit different everywhere. I have Harmony Engine, and that's doing the same thing. The octave up over here, octave down over here. And then I follow that up with Little Altar Boy at negative 1.9. And then the different thing we have here is vocal synth. And vocal synth is on vocoder mode, and it's giving it just a little bit of a different vibe, Let me turn off vocal synth now. So right away, you hear how that's changing it up, giving it a different texture, different tone. Then I'm following that up with a little bit more EQ. Let's move on. So then I have this track here. Let's listen to what it's doing. So let me solo it. And you can see that's a direct copy from this track, this track, this track, same track over here. I got it going down the center, and I put auto-tune on it, hard-tuned. In formant mode, formant is down 1 to 133, giving that deeper tone. Then I follow that up with Little Altar Boy at negative 2.7. Again, I'm trying not to do the exact same thing every time, so I'm creating different textures. Let's listen to it one more time. Pretty cool, pretty eerie. Let's move on. Underneath that, I have this track. This track's pretty cool. Check it out. Back is your daddy. He's your daddy. That's basically me speaking with a kind of like rasp / vocal fry in my voice, and then I took Little Altar Boy and I pitched the formant down, and to give it like an eerier vibe, and that's what's going on there. So let's move on. And that texture adds a little bit of grit, a little bit of vocal fry in the whole vocal. I blended it in very subtly. I ride it sometimes I pull it back, but for the most part, I like what it's doing. So now, I have an actual sung low octave over here. And let's listen to what this sounds like. So that is me singing the vocal in my baritone voice, and then I took Little Altar Boy and I formanted it down. Again, kind of using the same techniques. This is obviously a differently sung track, but I'm using the same techniques and just trying to create different textures. It's what it's all about, you know, for me, creating different textures, kind of doing the same but different settings, etc., etc. So let's go to this track over here. Let's listen to what it's doing. So that's a high octave. So I actually sang that in an octave higher than the chorus, and then I pitched it down, formatted it down just to give it a little bit of a different vibe. Why didn't I keep the high octave? I just didn't find it was fitting in the song, in the whole stack of vocals. So I kind of went and created that alien kind of demonic voice, but using a different track, using a different kind of technique, using it sung in a different octave. So even when I'm pitching it down and making it sound similar, it's inherently coming from a different source. So that's what I did there. Next track, another high octave that I sang. It's not a direct duplicate. And let's listen to how it sounds. So again, I sang that an octave up, and then I used Little Altar Boy or whatnot, and I formatted and pitched it down, and I put a kind of chorus effect on it. And those are the vocal stacks here. Let's run up top here, and I'll show you the layers I have going on here. So this is the same track as my lead. I sang it all the way through in one take, and let's take a listen to it. Got basically the same effects going on here, except I'm using vocal synth, using that same vocoder effect. I tweaked it a little bit differently. Let's hear how it sounds.
Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy. Hello.
It's not quite as pitched down, still has a little bit of the robotic vibe going on, but it adds a nice kind of clean texture in there. Let's move down to these two tracks over here. So again, direct copy. This one's on hard right, and this one here is panned hard left. Let's take a listen.
Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy.
So for this one, panned hard right, it's Little Altar Boy. Let's take a look and a listen to the one panned hard left.
Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy.
Kind of similar, but slightly different. Look, negative 1.9, negative 2.1 on both altar boys. So a little bit different. Why did I use these? Why did I pan them hard right and hard left? Because I wanted a little bit more of a natural tone in there amidst all the super pitched down ones. Obviously, it's still formatted down, but it's not as extreme, and it creates a nice wide image that kind of hugs you with a cleaner vocal. Let's move on. These two tracks, the pink ones here. So I have this one panned at 36 left, this one 37 right. Let's take a listen.
Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy.
Starting to get the idea, right? It's kind of a lot of the same, but slightly different. Auto-tune, retune speed at 22 in classic mode. And then I have some Little Altar Boy, negative 2.4, formatted down. And let's listen to the one on the right now.
Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy.
So, auto-tune at 17, classic mode. Then I have harmony engine here, doing the octave up and the octave down once again. And then I follow that up with Little Altar Boy at negative 0.5. See how it's different from this one at negative 2.4? Again, creating just some slight difference. And all these vocals are generally a little bit cleaner, a little bit less affected, even though they are affected, to give a little bit more of a natural tone. Again, it's not natural as if it was a folk song, but in context to what I'm doing with everything. Let's listen to both of these soloed.
Sit back, kiss your daddy. He's your daddy. Hello.
Pretty cool. Last but not least, this group here. I'm going to play them as a group first. Check it out. Let's play the left. Let's pan to 11 left and this one 14 right. So again, I'm using auto-tune, harmony engine, little altar boy, vocal synth, some EQ, but the main thing that's happening here is the proprietary Ableton auto pan. And then this one on the right, let's listen to it by itself. And same thing here. I kind of changed some of these settings up a little bit, but the main culprit here that's doing the bulk of the heavy lifting is another version of AutoPan, and I've changed the settings. So look, these are the settings on the right channel. These are the settings on the left channel. Notice how they're slightly different, and together they give this kind of cool sway, this stereo kind of back and forth, you know? That's my dance move. You like it? Anyhow. Pretty cool. I'm digging it. So let's play all these vocals together in solo so you can hear what's happening without the music. Check it out.
Sit back, kiss your daddy. Here's your daddy. He'll now abuse you.
I think it's pretty rich. I think it's pretty cool. It's definitely in your head, like just surrounding you, kind of coming from everywhere. But when you play with the music, it just kind of slaps, I find. One more time with the music.
So that's basically the vocal production for my latest single, Daddy. You can listen to the song everywhere. It's out now. I've dumped the links below here. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you liked about this video. If there's something you didn't like, let me know if you thought I'm excessive for having so many tracks in the chorus. And you can let me know if there's anything you'd like for me to break down even more. So that's it. I'm going to leave you here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Smash the like button, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace out.